So very few things are as terrifying as the tough earth itself collapsing apart and then hurtling towards you. The 7 landslides and rock slides you're about to see are some of the most devastating to ever be caught on camera. One, Himachal Pradesh, India. Our first fatal incident takes us to the small northern state of Himachal Pradesh in the country of India. Owing to its very rocky topography and an unfortunate seismic positioning, Himachal Pradesh is one of the most landslide-prone areas in the world. This region experiences frequent landslides, especially after the flash flooding from the monsoon season. None of this has stopped the state from being a bubbling tourist hotspot, though. And annually, Himachal Pradesh sees millions of visitors exploring its many tourist destinations. A favorite for them is the Sangla Valley, with its rich cultural heritage and lush natural environment. It would also be the scene of a massive tragedy. In July 2021, the locals and a few tourists were enjoying an afternoon near the Sangla Valley Bridge when the unexpected happened. From a video taken by an onlooker right as the incident happened, without any warning, a large chunk from a nearby mountain broke off and began to rush towards the bridge in a massive rock slide. All anyone could do was watch helplessly as massive boulders destroyed everything in their path. The bridge took a major beating, and several buildings were destroyed. But the real tragedy of it all were the cars under the bridge crushed by the rock slide as the boulders were headed for the river below. In the cars were several tourists, 9 of whom were killed while several were injured. 2. Kulu, India. A few years later, disaster would strike once again in Himachal Pradesh, this time in the municipal town of Kullu. The capital town of the relatively small district of the same name, like most of Himachal Pradesh, was no stranger to natural disasters. The 2023 monsoon season, however, would take things to a far deadlier level for the residents of Kulu. After days of heavy rainfall that triggered heavy flash floods and caused surrounding rivers to flow past their banks, Kulu was already overwhelmed. Several houses and farmlands were completely submerged, gutting the local economy. The amount of rainfall for that fateful August alone broke all monthly records for the past 50 years. With the surrounding hillsides seriously weathered by the severe downpour, they gradually started to give way. This resulted in one of the most severe landslides ever seen in the region. The force of the disaster was apocalyptic, with several houses completely disintegrated in its wake, pulled apart like they were made of paper mache. The authorities launched rescue missions to recover casualties, assist the stranded, and provide them with aid. Thousands of residents were relocated to nearby relief camps. 3. Petropolis, Brazil. This next disaster takes us to a city near the coast on the opposite end of the world. Over the years, worsening weather conditions would increasingly affect the quality of life of residents in the Brazilian city of Petropolis and threaten the ecosystem that made it a major attraction. And on the 16th of February, 2022, things would reach a deadly peak. That fateful day was marked by a series of catastrophes for the residents of Rio de Janeiro. But nowhere would be as badly hit as Petropolis. In just a few hours, the state experienced a month's worth of rainfall, leading to several deadly flash floods. A video that would go viral online captures what happens next. Rock and debris loosened by the torrential rainfall from just a few hours earlier began to stream down a nearby hill into the city. The landslide was massive and extremely devastating. In the video, you could see entire houses and trees swept up in its wake. The disaster claimed more than 100 lives, with several left trapped in the mud. 4. Secocha, Peru. The next tragedy on the list takes place in nearby Peru, in the small town of Secocha. Secocha is a sleepy little town, located right next to the banks of the Ocona River in the Camana province of the Arequipa region. Owing to the general climate of the region and how close the town is to a body of water, Secocha is naturally prone to flooding. This combo would prove deadly for its residents on the 5th of February 2023. The region of Arequipa had been consistently bombarded with torrential rainfall for days leading up to that point, and the Ocona River had begun to overflow its banks and pose a major threat to the people of Secocha. This was the forewarning of the wave of destruction that would soon strike. A massive landslide tore through the town, destroying countless buildings and killing scores of people. Several viral videos capturing the disaster were uploaded to the internet in its wake, each with its own grim perspective. The situation on the ground was made worse by the fact that the authorities were unable to initially access the area, as all roads leading to the site of the tragedy impeded rescue efforts. The government had to resort to deploying the Peruvian military to transport essential aid to surviving victims through helicopters. 5. Racha, Georgia. All the tragedies on this list are absolutely devastating, but this next one will break your heart. The alpine regions of the Caucasus are extremely prone to flash flooding and landslides due to the mountainous terrain and the rainy climate. The western region in Racha in the beautiful country of Georgia would face the worst of this in the summer of 2023. On August the 3rd, after weeks of unprecedented rainfall, the region was hit by one of its worst bouts of flash flooding yet. In a video uploaded to social media, the wave of debris carrying objects as large as trees can be seen to be ripping a bridge straight from its hinges with its sheer destructive force. More than 11 people were immediately confirmed dead, while 20 others were declared missing. But the inspiring story of a man saving his niece from the disaster brought some much-needed light to this dark event. On that day, the entire family went for a hike in the forest of Shobi. Next thing they knew, he and his 6-year-old niece were caught up in this landslide. With no other structure left standing in the area, this man made the brave decision to wade through the mud and head for a nearby hotel. After 4 long hours after walking in the mud, they reached the hotel and finally got help. More than 19 people died in this incident. But this tale of bravery became a much-needed source of strength for a country in mourning. 6. Atami, Japan. The next landslide struck in the most unlikely of places. Atami is a coastal city located on Japan's Izu Peninsula, set on volcanic hills within the Fuji-Hakone-Izu National Park, also home to Mount Fuji. The ancient city has been a major tourist destination for centuries, owing to its rich history and natural hot springs. A coastal city with frequent periods of heavy rainfall, this was the perfect formula for a disaster waiting to happen, and the city knew this. So the authorities preemptively built a dam to prevent flash floods in the case of a particularly bad rainy period. For several years, it looked like they had permanently solved the problem. But then came July of 2021 when the dam would be pushed to its limits. An unprecedented bout of rainfall in the city completely overwhelmed the dam and caused it to collapse, creating what can only be described as an artificial tsunami. As we earlier mentioned, the city of Atami is located on volcanic hills. The problem with volcanic soil is that it flows very easily when it gets wet, making it the last thing you want in this type of situation. The resulting landslide destroyed several houses, a significant portion of the city's infrastructure, and claimed 2 lives while 20 others were declared missing. More than 20,000 households were ordered to be evacuated in what was one of the worst disasters in the region in decades. 7. Shangla, Pakistan. This next tragedy is more personal and on a much smaller scale than all the others on this list, but no less deadly and no less gut-wrenching. Pakistan, like most other regions in the subcontinent, is prone to frequent monsoon rains and deadly landslides. In the height of the monsoon season in July 2023, disaster would strike in a small village in Pakistan. 8 children were playing cricket when they were swept up in a massive landslide. None of them would survive. After a period of extensive excavation for the bodies by the government and manual digging from village residents, the 8 bodies of the young boys were eventually recovered. 8 promising children with their lives erased by an amoral act of nature, throwing an entire village into mourning. And that's it for the video. If there's any other landslides or rockfalls you feel we should have shed light on, please let us know in the comments. And with that, until next time.